Okay, is Shireen there?
Okay, that's it.
Okay, super. All right, I'll start again. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Planning Committee on Thursday, the 20th of August at 10 a.m. Please note that the public session of this meeting will be recorded and published online for public access after the meeting. Does anyone have any objection? No? Okay, thank you. Can all attendees switch off their camera and mute their microphone when not speaking? The camera and microphone should only be switched on when you're invited to speak. Guidance on how to do this is contained in the guidance issued to you. I will now ask the clerk to advise the members participating today and if all members could confirm their attendance once their name has been announced, so the clerk has it clear in the recording and can also register it for the meeting. Ms. McBain, could you do that, please?
Thank you, convener. So I'll just do a quick roll call for attendance. Convener?
Here.
Councillor Jennifer Stewart?
I'm here.
Councillor Allen? Councillor Cook?
Here.
Councillor Many?
Here.
Councillor Noble?
Here.
Councillor Gregg?
Present.
Councillor Mackenzie? Here. Councillor Malik?
Here.
Thank you. Councillor Allen, are you present?
Yes, eventually. I've been from room to room, but I'm here now.
I thought you were having problems. That's good. Thank you.
Yes, I was. I'm here now.
All present and correct.
Okay,
Yep.
Thank you so much, Ms. McBain. There are a number of items of quasi-judicial business for the committee to consider today. Members are reminded that if they leave the room or the meeting during consideration of any application, they are unable to participate or vote on that item when they return. Please advise the clerk via the meeting chat that you are leaving the room and therefore unable to determine the item. Okay, folks, if we just move swiftly on to the agenda today, can I just check that everybody at 1.1 has the motion against officer's recommendation procedural note?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. There's no determination of urgent business required. Any declarations of interest? No. Okay, we have the meeting, the minutes of the previous meeting at 4.1, pages 9 to 24. Is there any matters that anybody wants to raise? No. Okay, can I just take that's an accurate minute of that meeting? Thank you. Okay, we can move on to the committee planner. Before I move past it, can I just check that everybody got the updated circulation? Okay, super. And we can now move on to the general business. So the first item is at 6.1, which is detailed planning permission for the erection of a 4-storey electric care centre with associated external works planned to the east of Lady Helen Parking Centre, Aberdeen Royal Infirmary, Forester Hill Road. Planning reference is 191.
Convener, excuse me.
Sorry, Councillor Cook.
I've got a question, a couple of questions on the planner.
Oh, sorry.
If I may.
Apologies. I was so focused on reading that I missed your hand. Yep, certainly go back to the planner.
Thanks, Convener. Yeah, a couple of questions on it. First one I asked, because I know it's of considerable local interest, can officers just confirm that the application for an Aldi on Countess Wells Road we expect will probably come to the September meeting, but we can't yet confirm that, so it might be at a later one. Can officers just confirm that?
Daniel, are you there? Yes.
Yes, convener. Yes, we intend to bring it to the September committee. There's a number of outstanding matters, information required before we can do that. So it really depends when that information arrives, whether we'll be able to make the September committee.
Thanks, that's really helpful. And second question on the planner, just a suggestion. I wonder if it might be helpful at the next meeting, we could maybe have a report on how the Spaces for People thing is working under delegated powers. I think officers have got a really tough gig on this one because they're having to make decisions very quickly and without any precedent either here in Aberdeen or elsewhere. But I'm sure others are, I'm getting lots of complaints from constituents about whether it's blue light access on Union Street or the Esselmont bus gate or beer tents in the city centre. It seems to me that officers are the ones having to take all the flack when people complain, and they're not in a really strong position to defend themselves. And if we could have a discussion about how well or not that is working, it might be helpful. And I think if officers were involved, if elected members were more involved, the public can hold us to account if things go wrong. Whereas I think officers are in a difficult position.
Okay, I'll take Mrs. Beattie, because obviously there's a number of different departments which it doesn't necessarily land with us in planning, although Gail certainly has a lot of responsibility. Mrs. Beattie.
Yes, you sort of stole my thunder there. So I think I don't think Planning and Development Management Committee is the right place to have a look at that. Certainly in terms of what went to urgent business before to give us the sort of the permission to move through. We are looking about how we then reflect that back through the committee structure on an ongoing basis. But I wouldn't imagine that it would come to Planning and Development Management Committee. But the issue is live with us and has been discussed as part of the transition arrangements from emergency powers back to the committee structure.
Okay, but thank you for raising it, Councillor Coote, because I mean I think we've all had comments made about that. So we were very focused on making sure it came back through into committee structure. But thank you for raising it anyway. Is there anything else on the planner before we move on?
No, that's me done, thanks.
Okay, thanks, John. Okay, if we could move back to item 6.1, which I gave the details, and it's Mr. Evans.
Thank you, convener. I'll just be a second while I share my presentation on screen here.
Thank you.
Hopefully you can see that now.
Yes, thanks.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so yes, item 6.1 is a proposal for the erection of a 4-storey elective care centre with associated external works at Aberdeen Royal Infirmary. In terms of a description of the site, I've got some slides here just to run through. So the application site extends to just under 1 hectare and sits at the heart of the Forester Hill Health Campus, directly to the north of the Phase 1 building, which is just this section here, if you can see the cursor there, and includes the main entrance to Aberdeen Royal Infirmary, the building that is, and on the opposite side of Forester Hill Road from the recently constructed Lady Helen parking centre, which is just across here. I've identified a few key reference points just on these slides to show exactly where the site is, along with some photos that show the site at present. So the site includes the northern portion of that Phase 1 building, as well as the existing patient drop-off area, which is just here outside. Sorry, the patient drop-off area is to the north of the building, and that's the bus drop-off there. As well as a steeply sloping area of grassed open space and associated trees and shrubs, which you can just see on the aerial view there, and then again in the photograph here. These plans and photos show the 1960s Phase 1 building to the right-hand side here, which would be connected to the proposed new elective care centre via a sort of bridge-link corridor, as well as another connection across 3 levels, as well as the 1930s Ashgrove House on the left of the image and to the north of the proposed building. You can also see that the site sits directly to the north of the existing bus drop-off and turning loop for the main hospital entrance, which is just in the foreground of this image here. So in terms of, sorry, there's just a few images there that I don't have some spiel to. So this just shows the site looking westwards towards the new Lady Helen multi-storey car park. Image flipped essentially with the Phase 1 building on the left and the Ashgrove House on the right. Another view of the Phase 1 building, and this is the sort of patient drop-off area along that low point. And then looking towards the older 1930s Ashgrove House from Forester Hill Road, and another view from the bus drop-off. And that's just for context, the Lady Helen parking centre. So, turning to a description of the proposal, detailed planning permission is sought for a new 4-storey elective care centre, along with associated service yard and ambulance bays to the rear, with hard and soft landscaping areas as well. And the elective care centre is intended to provide day patient services for a number of surgical and medical specialties by providing day case procedures and surgery, along with a dedicated endoscopy unit in a single facility. The elective care centre would be capable of providing a one-stop clinic for urology, respiratory and dermatology, along with outpatient imaging services and teaching and meeting accommodation. Most of the services contained within the proposed extension would be relocating from other locations elsewhere in the Forester Hill Health Campus. The 4 floors of accommodation are arranged around this central courtyard space. You can just see it at the middle of the image here, with hard and soft landscaped pedestrian plaza leading to the main entrance in the eastern elevation from Forester Hill Road. Excuse me. The changing ground levels, as we saw from the earlier photographs here, that changing ground levels means that the hard and soft landscaped open space for staff use sits at a lower level than the main entrance plaza. You can see this best from the level 2 plan, which I'll just flip forward to here. So this sits at a lower level, which you can see from the sloping ground, whereas the main entrance plaza sits at a higher level. So there's a retaining wall separating these two areas in grey, if that explains that. Also at the lower levels, the existing bus drop-off, so stairs have been incorporated into the design at this point here to connect the main entrance. It's also available at grade for accessible access, just via taking a slightly longer route around. So as I mentioned, the building would be linked to the existing and immediately adjacent phase 1 building across 3 levels, as well as a single level bridge link. So if I flip through the images here, this is the single level bridge link at level 4, whereas the more substantial link is across 3 levels. The back of house facilities are to the rear, including a service yard and spaces for ambulance drop-off and turning. Again, you can see there's a retaining wall here which separates the ambulance bays and turning space at that lower level from the service yard, which sits at the higher level. Existing patient drop-off facilities, which are presently to the north of the phase 1 building, would be relocated to an area just south of Ashgrove House, which offers convenient access to the main entrance of the elective care centre. So that's just this space up here that we're talking about. So that's well connected and convenient for the main entrance. We've also got some visualizations which I think would probably be helpful at this point. I think that's the first of those, yeah. So the materials for the proposal include white render, a contrasting coloured render which hasn't been specified at this point, along with grey facing brick used at base course and ground floor levels, and a coloured wall cladding panel system used in the main western elevation, which you can just see here, to add some colour and interest to that elevation and mark it out as the public face of the building. The ground floor accommodation in this main elevation has been set back, as you can see there, with a sort of sheltered colonnade formed. And the building is also characterised by its irregular window pattern, which to some extent reflects the variety of internal accommodation, housing so many different services with different clinical needs. In terms of reason for referral to committee, the proposal is a major application under the hierarchy of developments, and therefore necessitated statutory pre-application consultation. The proposal was also considered or presented to the Council's pre-application forum in August of last year. In terms of consultations, there are no objections from consultees. Conditions have been requested by SEPA in relation to site-specific pollution prevention plan to be agreed prior to work starting, and also Aberdeen Airport has requested a bird hazard management plan, again to be agreed before work starts. There were no adverse comments from SEPA or the Council's flooding and coastal protection team on flooding grounds. A flood risk assessment was provided in support of the application and identifies the Gilcomston burn running broadly east to west to the south of the site. The flood risk assessment refers to historic mapping indicating a culverted tributary running down Forester Hill Road, although that wouldn't be altered or affected as part of the proposal. The new drainage system to be installed as part of the proposal would ensure that the rate of surface water that discharges from the site is no different than it would be pre-development levels. So on that basis, we're satisfied that there would be no effect on the existing flooding problems that have been seen at the Gilcomston burn, including recently. In terms of public comment, there were no representations made in connection with the application, and ultimately officers' view is that the the site forms part of a wider area which is identified for existing community sites and facilities in the local development plan, and that zoning, along with the associated policy CF1, permits the expansion of existing healthcare uses on healthcare sites. So in that sense, we're satisfied with the principle of development. The design is considered to be excuse me, appropriate to its context, which is characterized by excuse me, which is characterized by a variety of buildings of differing ages and styles. However, NHS Grampian has in recent years been seeking to develop a more consistent palette of materials to be applied, and that's reflected in recent developments or recent approved developments at the Baird and Anchor schemes. The scale and form of the development is considered to be acceptable and comparable with neighbouring buildings, and whilst no additional car parking is provided to support this this elective care centre, it is recognised that the majority of services to be housed within the elective care centre are relocating from elsewhere within the campus. A small number of spaces would be lost to facilitate development. However, that's comfortably offset by the unused capacity within the recently constructed multi-storey car park, which is understood to operate at roughly 60% capacity at peak times. The site's accessible via existing pedestrian and roads infrastructure serving the hospital, and its proximity next to the main public entrance is noted. Some outstanding technical matters can be addressed by the use of planning conditions, but overall it's felt the proposal is supported by the development plan and is therefore recommended to members for approval. Thank you, convener. Just hand. Sorry, I don't think I flicked through the remainder of those visualizations, so happy to go back and forth.
Questions for Mr. Evans? Councillor Cook.
Thanks, convener. Could I just confirm? I think it's on page 52 of the pack, and you mentioned it just now. We think that the existing multi-storey has got 60% capacity at maximum. Sorry, I just thought that was that the right figure? It kind of, when I've been there, it kind of looked busier, although I haven't counted the cars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the information that was supplied to us by NHS Grampian. I think my own personal experience of using the hospital car park there is that it's very busy on the lower floors, but I think as you work your way up, those upper floors are very much underutilised. So I think that's possibly why it seems a little bit discordant.
Okay. Anybody else? Any other questions, Councillor Cook? Or yeah, thanks. Councillor Gregg.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to ask about a point on page 53, which is the response from the police consultation. They're recommending secured by design accreditation, and I wondered if that is being recommended to the developer. Is it something that could even be formalised in an informative? It seems a very worthwhile recommendation to make. Will it be followed up?
Yeah, the secured by design scheme isn't something that we would usually use a planning condition to secure, but I think something like an informative, as you suggest, is entirely reasonable. So that would be fine.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from Mr. Evans? Mr. Evans, could you just pick up the picture, take up the picture which shows where the cycle parking will be? It is made reference to in the conditions, but it's just that I can't be.
Oh, sorry, bear with me a second.
It's just that area.
Yeah, so there's some cycle parking shown just under a shelter there,
Okay.
with Sheffield stands, but I believe there's also some more secure lockers also incorporated into the most recent version of the plans. I think that's these in the blue there. You can see them.
You're content that that's a sufficient number, given that it could be patients and members of staff may use it, and staff obviously would be a regular.
Yes, I think we're satisfied. There is existing cycle parking infrastructure in the hospital site, so this would really just be catering for the elective care centre itself, and I think we're satisfied with the level. Yeah.
Okay, that's super. Thanks very much, Mr. Evans. Any other questions for Mr. Evans? No. Okay, folks. Well, we've got to approve conditionally is the recommendation, which I'm happy to move. We've got an advisory note on page 62. Now, we just heard a suggestion of an informative note, which we could simply add, Mr. Evans, around the police's suggestion. And we've got 8 conditions on page 60 to 62. And with all that in place, can I just get agreement that we're content to approve? Ms. McBean, could you just run through, given that we have it then and there?
No problem. Thank you, convener. I'll just do a roll call to make sure everybody's in agreement with what the convener just said. So, convener, are you happy to approve?
Approve, yeah.
Councillor Jennifer Stewart?
Approve.
Councillor Allen?
Approve.
Councillor Cook?
Approve.
Councillor Noble?
Approve.
Councillor Many?
Approve.
Councillor Gregg?
Approve.
Councillor Mackenzie? Councillor Mackenzie?
Approve.
And Councillor Malik?
Approve.
Thank you. The item is unanimously approved. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. McBean. Now, I believe we have Councillor Many and Noble will be departing after, now that we've completed that, and we now have Councillor Allard and Hutchison. Could we just confirm that, Ms. McBean?
Yeah,
That's
I'm
right,
Noble here. I'm just leaving.
Thank you. Okay, excellent. Thank you, folks, for attending.
So just
Okay.
for the recording, can I just confirm that Councillor Allard and Hutchison are now present?
Present.
Present.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, we're now moving on to item. Oh, a minute, sorry, I've got something duplicated. Yeah, at 6.2, which is the detailed planning permission for the formation of road with associated footways, cycle tracks, street lighting, drainage, landscape earthworks, and associated works, road corridor between Ashgrove Road and St. Macris Drive. And we have Mr. East.
Thank you, convener. Hopefully you can see the presentation.
Yes, thank you, we can.
Okay, I'll just get on with it then. Okay, this is an application for the construction of the northern leg of the council's Berrydown Road Improvement Project. The site comprises a corridor of around 700 metres in length between Ashgrove Road and Backhilton Road in the south, which is at the bottom of the image here, and the Kick Brewster roundabout where the Great Northern Road and St. Margaret Drive meet at the northern end, which is at the top of the picture here. I'll just take you through the different stages of the corridor. So here we're looking from Backhilton Road towards those trees, so the road would go through there towards the open space between Tillham Place and Kick Brewster Square, which has been reserved for the project. Second slide, we're moving further through the open space here. We've got Tillham Place there in the distance and Kick Brewster Square on the right-hand side of the top image. And then from the opposite direction, we're looking at the bottom picture from Great Northern Road, looking towards the area reserved for the road. So those trees and wall there to be removed to allow the road to continue through. Continuing north along Great Northern Road, we've got the Northern Hotel on the right-hand side there, and there's space reserved for the road on the right-hand side, beyond which is the council's Kick Brewster depot. Continuing north again, we've got the road heading down towards the Kitty Brewster Police Station on the right-hand side there, which the road takes its route along. And then going down that road, you've got the Kitty Brewster Police Station in the distance there, then looking back up the road in the second image. And then finally, you've got the Kitty Brewster Police Station again on the right-hand side. Then going up the hill here is an area used by the council for the parking of vehicles from the nearby depot. And finally, looking in the opposite direction from the roundabout at St Macher Drive and Great Northern Road towards a wall where the road would come through and connect up the roundabout. Right, only this part of the project requires planning permission, with the southern leg between Ashgrove Road heading south along Berrydown Road towards Skene Square being permitted development. Now, this is because the northern leg involves the creation of a new sections of road, whereas the southern leg involves upgrading existing road. Therefore, only matters relating to the northern leg should be considered by the committee. It's also important to distinguish between the council's role as planning authority and its separate role as promoter of the project. Proposed northern leg would be a dual carriageway featuring a central reservation with 2 lanes in each direction. There would be a shared footpath and shared foot and cycle path on each side of the road along its length, with priority at road junctions also provided for cyclists. The new road would feature several sets of toucan crossings for the use by pedestrians and cyclists, and these are located at its junction with Backhilton Road, junction with Powis Terrace and Clifton Road, and at the approach to the St Macher roundabout adjacent to the proposed entrance to Kitty Brewster Police Station. So I'll just go through the more detailed plans of the road. So starting at the southern end, the southern leg of the road connects in here from Berrydown Road at the bottom of the image, coming through the area reserved between Kitty Brewster Square and Dillon Place, and joining up the leg coming from Backhilton Road. So it continues north onto Great Northern Road here, with a suds pond for drainage purposes located between the road and the Kitty Brewster depot. Heading north, we've got the Northern Hotel on the left-hand side here. Great Northern Road, as it is just now, would be stopped up here. Access still provided from the north, and a service area for the, or an area available for servicing for the Northern Hotel here. On the left-hand side, we've got the Kitty Brewster depot. And then as we go north, the road would head between the depot and the tenements that are on Great Northern Road. Continuing north, we've got the road going alongside the police station on the right-hand side and the back of the tenements on the left-hand side, before coming to the terminus at the roundabouts connecting St Macher Drive and Great Northern Road. The project's a key element in the council's long-term strategy to reduce traffic within the city centre and encourage a modal shift to more sustainable modes of transport. Alongside other roads projects, such as at South College Street, it would allow traffic to be routed around the city centre core rather than through it, which in turn would allow space within the city centre to be reallocated. The project would also alleviate congestion along the route and improve walking and cycling provision. Doing this, the project is considered to support the aims of the regional transport strategy and the themes contained within the National Transport Strategy and Scottish Planning Policy. By virtue of being included within the Council's local transport strategy, the principle of the project is established. Alongside that, the land is allocated for the new road within the adopted and proposed local development plans, further establishing support for the proposal. Support is also offered by the City Centre Master Plan and Strategic Infrastructure Plan, which, although not statutory planning documents, explain the delivery mechanisms and measures proposed by the Council for achieving the aims of the strategic and local development plans. Moving on from the principle of the project, with it complete, air pollution levels along the northern leg of the route would continue to be below objective levels, and the measures which the project would allow to be implemented within the city centre would help improve air quality there. There would, however, be an adverse impact in terms of noise on a significant number of properties, predominantly along the northern leg of the project, and a small number would actually see a benefit where traffic is diverted onto the new route and away from existing roads. Whilst the increase in noise exposure itself would be contrary to local plan policy, the wider benefits of the project mentioned earlier are considered to outweigh this harm. In terms of drainage and flooding, the drainage infrastructure associated with the new road would be designed to reduce the risk of flooding compared to the current situation, with new sections of drainage that would include drainage basins and storage systems which will be designed to cope with significant storm events and climate change. Short to medium term impact, adverse impact has been identified in terms of tree loss. However, a suitable replanting and landscaping scheme would mitigate this impact and over time would help to integrate the road into the area. Other matters relating to traffic management, protected species and built heritage have been satisfactorily addressed, and therefore the recommendation is one of approval subject to conditions as contained in the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Easton. Questions for Mr. Easton? Councillor Allard.
Yes, thank you very much. I've got a couple of questions. One regarding page 95, regarding the proposals have been reviewed and I considered for flooding by flooding officers, and I considered acceptable. I'm not sure about the word acceptable. I would have wanted to have some reassurance. I know it's in accordance with policy NE6, but I would like to have some explanation about the word acceptable. Is it acceptable with the flooding that we had recently, that the word acceptable is there? And my second question is regarding page 96, the following page, and I know it's on the recommendation for approval that something should be done about it, the reuse of granite regarding the walls and the curbs. I'm just asking the question, why was that not in the original dealt with right from the outset, which would be the good example to have that right from the outset. Thank you.
Okay, on the flooding matter, the use of the word acceptable is in that it's been reviewed by the team. They're happy with proposals as they are at the moment. So it's a kind of two-stage process. There's a sort of outline design built up with the council's road team and their consultants in jointly with the flooding team. So the flooding team have been involved in the design of the.
Mr. Easton, I've got Claire Royce from the flooding team, and while she hasn't been directly involved in this particular application, she is here, so perhaps she can maybe assist you. Ms. Royce.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello. We have looked at the flood risk assessment and the drainage impact assessment for this scheme, and we've agreed in principle the proposals that are going to be made for mitigating against increasing the flooding danger. We'll be working with the consultants during the detailed design, and we'll be agreeing the mitigation prior to construction beginning. Now, the SUDS basins are designed to hold back the water in any flood event and let it into the system in a controlled manner. And we usually look for up to the 1 in 200 flood to be catered for, although Scottish Water in their system only look for the 1 in 30 to be catered for, but we generally look for the 1 in 200. You mentioned the flood event last week. This hasn't been classified by SEPA yet, but Scottish Water are telling us that they consider that was something like a 1 in 300 event. So that is an event that we don't design for anyway. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Councillor Harold.
Thank you, yes.
Okay, and Mr. Easton, if you could take up, thank you, Ms. Royce, and the granite element.
Yeah, on the granite, so there's several features along the route, mostly walls. There's also a substation which are constructed of granite. So the idea would be to reuse that where appropriate. The reason there's a condition to do that is because until the walls are taken down, it's difficult to know what kind of condition the granite will be in, whether it's reusable or not. There's also granite curbs, which again, until they're taken out, it's difficult to know what condition they'll be in, and they need to be the right dimensions, etc., to comply with the current design standards and what's required for the new road. So the idea is that once they get on site, they do a survey and we agree with them what can be reused.
Okay, Councillor Allard.
Yes, thank you very much. My point was just to make sure that we have that right in advance, and it would have been good to have put a sentence about what you just said. It would have been great to have that in the papers to start. But thanks very much.
Thank you. Councillor Cook.
Thanks, convener. I actually had a bunch of questions on traffic and noise on this one, all of which have been answered in advance by officers by email. Just like to, on record, apologies to officers for giving them those questions fairly late in the day, and thanks in particular to Mr. Easton, who was emailing me last night with answers to my questions, when by rights he really should have had his feet up in front of the telly. So thank you for that. Just one minor point. Some of the properties that are affected by noise may be eligible for some financial support under the Noise Insulation Scotland Regulations 1975. Can I just ask that if this is approved and if the thing goes ahead, we make sure that we make that possibility very clear to any of the people who may be affected and may be eligible, rather than kind of just waiting for them to come to us.
Yes, certainly. I mean, I checked the regulations, although the regulations apply to the Council's Roads Authority rather than in its planning capacity, but the regulations do place a mandatory requirement for the Council to approach those that are eligible rather than wait for them to approach the Council. So yeah, we're confident that would be done.
Thanks. That's me done.
Thanks, Councillor Cook. Ms. Beattie.
Yeah, no, it was just to reassure Councillor Cook, as the person that sits with both those hats, I can make sure that that's picked up.
Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Beattie. Any other questions? Nope. Okay, folks. Well, we've got a recommendation of approval conditionally. On page 101, there's 2 advisory notes, and on page 99 to 101, there's 10 conditions. And again, that has one in particular that relates to the use of granite, which, you know, does have does talk about salvageable granite, etc. So I think that Mr. Easton's done his best to try and cover that point. It's sometimes difficult to get every word in there. I appreciate Mr. Easton. So I'll be moving that recommendation. Is anybody otherwise minded? No. Ms. McBain, could you just go to the vote?
Thank you, convener. We can just do another roll call for the recording. So if everybody's happy to approve the item as per the committee report, convener?
Approve.
Councillor Jennifer Stewart?
Approve.
Councillor Allen?
Approve.
Councillor Cook?
Approve.
Councillor Allard?
Approve.
Councillor Hutchison?
Approve.
Councillor Gregg?
Approve.
Councillor Mackenzie?
Approve.
And Councillor Malik?
Approve.
Thank you. So the item is unanimously approved.
Thank you very much, Ms. McBain. We're moving on to item 6.3, which is detailed planning permission for the erection of a 2-storey dwelling house with integral double garage, terrace, external steps, partial excavation and re-levelling, including construction of a retaining wall, fence and associated landscaping. Land opposite 39 Bloomfield Road. That is Dinica, I believe. Let me get this. Yeah, almost second page, Dinica. Thank you.
Yeah. Can you see the slides?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This application is for the construction of a single detached dwelling with 4 bedrooms on a plot on vacant land to the north side of Bloomfield Road. The site was previously in use as part of the private gardens to the flats to the west and north. If I just quickly go down to the location plan. So here's the plot of land, and here you can see the flats that it used to serve. The site slopes up steeply from Bloomfield Road and then it levels out somewhat. I will give a brief overview of the application and then I'll take you through the slides. The application had 2 rounds of neighbour notification as some amendments were made to the design of the dwelling following the first round of consultation, and it addressed some of the concerns raised at that time. Both times 6 letters of objection were received from the same 6 properties on Great Southern Road, and the application is therefore referred to Planning Committee. The matters raised are all detailed in the committee report, which is part of this agenda, and included concerns in relation to the design of the dwelling, the level of development, impact on the residential amenity of neighbouring properties, and an increase in traffic on Bloomfield Road. It should be noted that under planning permission 180060 DPP, a detached dwelling in a similar position on the plot was approved by planning committee 2 years ago, and this permission is still valid. So therefore the principle of residential development on the plot is accepted. The main issues to be considered in this case are the level of development on the site, the design of the proposed dwelling and its impact on the residential amenity of neighbouring dwellings. In relation to the level of development on the site, this current proposal is for a dwelling with a footprint which is about 20 square metres bigger than that previously approved. The plot itself is also a little bit bigger, and therefore the level of development on the site will be similar to that previously approved. So if you can see the hand, at the moment the red line goes all the way up to here, whereas before it roughly went here, so they've included another strip of land to the north. The proposed design of the building will be modern, and it would include a mix of full height and standard windows. I'll just quickly go through to the elevations actually. It would have an asymmetric roof, and it will be finished in a combination of white render and timber linings. It is considered that in the surrounding area there's a mix of traditional and more modern buildings, and this proposed contemporary design will be acceptable in this context. In relation to residential amenity, the dwelling is set at such a distance from all neighbouring properties, and I'll go back up again to the site plan, so it's roughly here, that it would not result in any loss of light to neighbouring properties. The window arrangements have taken due consideration of the location of neighbouring properties, especially to the west here and to the east, with no first floor windows on either the west or the east elevation. And it is therefore considered that there would be no direct overlooking of any private areas of neighbouring properties. For these reasons, the proposal is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions as listed in the committee report. And I will now quickly go through the rest of the slides. So here's the location plan. Here's an aerial photograph, so you can see the area of level land, and this is kind of the bank. Here's the existing site plan. So again, this shows the change in level, which is a good couple of meters up from Bloomfield Road to this level area higher up. So here you can see the site plan. So this is the footprint of the dwelling. There's a raised terrace area to the front, and this is the driveway which will be excavated out from the bank. Then here are the elevations, and again you can see that the bank rises up here with the garage on the lower ground floor and the property itself higher up. Here's the floor plans. Here's some sections through the site, and it puts it in the context of the properties, the flats to the west. And finally, here are a couple of visuals that demonstrate how the dwelling would sit within the site. So are there any questions?
Okay, any questions for Jenica? No, I think you're getting let off lightly. The recommendation that we have then, if there's no questions, is one of approval conditionally. The conditions are laid out mainly on pages 1, 2, 3. There's 4 of them. Is anybody otherwise minded? No, I'm not seeing any hands. Ms. McBain, could you just go to the vote, please?
Thank you, convener. So again, we'll just do a roll call to make sure everybody's in agreement for approving the item. So convener?
Approve.
Councillor Jennifer Stewart?
Approve.
Councillor Allen?
Approve.
Councillor Cook?
Approve.
Councillor Allard?
Approve.
Councillor Hutchison?
Approve.
Councillor Gregg?
Approve.
Councillor Mackenzie?
Approve.
Councillor Malik?
Approve.
Thank you. So the item is unanimously approved.
Thank you very much, Ms. McBain. Okay, we're now moving on to the section where the recommendation is one of refusal. First item is 7.1 is detailed planning permission for the erection of 4 detached dwelling houses at 19 South Avenue, Aberdeen. And again, it's Jenica Brazier again. Sorry.
Okay, so before, can you see the slides on the screen?
Yes.
Loading up.
Thinking about it.
Yeah. Are they up now?
It's got a circle. We're getting there.
Because I can see them on my screen.
That's it. They're there. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So this application is for the construction of 4 detached dwellings on a vacant plot at 19 South Avenue in Cults. It was previously occupied by a single dwelling. The site is located on the corner of South Avenue, running along the east boundary, and North Deeside Road, which runs to the north. It is set in a residential area of Cults. The application was again subject to 2 rounds of neighbour notification, as there were some amendments to the proposal, in particular the proposed implementation of a one-way system around South Avenue, which I'll explain in more detail later. A total of 34 members of the public objected to the scheme across these 2 rounds of neighbour notification, and in addition the Cults, Beelside and Mill Timber Community Council also lodged an objection. All matters raised are set out in the report and can be found on pages 142, 143 and 144 of today's agenda pack. However, material planning considerations raised can be summarised under the following categories. They're about design, overdevelopment of the site, and adverse impact on the character of the surrounding area, adverse impact on the residential amenity of neighbouring properties and proposed residents, impacts on access, parking and pedestrian safety. The site itself has a long planning history. In 2014, planning permission was granted for a substantial single dwelling on the site. This permission has not been implemented and has now lapsed. This was followed by 2 applications for a block of 4 flats in 2016 and 2018, both of which were refused. The 2018 application was appealed, and this appeal was also dismissed. The main issues to consider in this case are in relation to the impact of the proposal on the character and appearance of the surrounding area, the level of development on the site, its design, and impact on the residential amenity of both residents of neighbouring properties and future occupiers of the units. In relation to the impact of the proposal, I'm going too far, sorry. Here we go. In relation to the impact of the proposal on the surrounding area, the site context is of importance here. So what the location plan shows is the site obviously outlined.
The plan's not up yet, Danica.
Oh, it's not. Is it not changing?
No, we've still just got the original page. That's it. Yeah.
There you go. So the location plan shows the site outlined in red. Can you see the little hand?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It further demonstrates that the general area is characterised by detached and semi-detached dwellings sitting relatively centrally within long plots, leaving generous distances to both the north boundary and the south boundary. This pattern of development can also be seen on the aerial photo. There you go. The site plan, somehow I need to click between the 2. The site plan shows that the proposal would bring development much closer to North Deeside Road and to the south boundary. The distance between plot 4, which is this one, and the pavement of North Deeside Road would only be between 2.5 and 3.5 metres, whereas the distance between the front of the neighbouring house, which is this one at 21 South Avenue, would be around 18 metres. It's therefore considered that the proposal brings the building line much further forward than is currently prevalent in the surrounding area. This would have an adverse impact on the general character and appearance of the surrounding area, and it would make this plot unduly prominent within the street scene. Furthermore, if we go back to the location plan, here we go. It can be seen that there's generally a low level of development in the surrounding area. The pattern is of single dwellings set in substantial gardens with a relatively low plot ratio. So, for example, the plot ratio of the neighbouring property at 21 South Avenue sits at only 14%, and this figure is relatively comparable for a number of properties in the surrounding area. In this case, the site plan again shows that the level across the site is much greater. What is not clearly shown on the drawing here is that there's a triangular area. Can you see the cursor? It's roughly here, which is
not showing any cursor.
The computer's gone a bit funny between the 2 presentations. So there's a triangular area here, which is the existing vehicular access into 21 South Avenue. So this area of land, even though it's not clearly marked out on the drawings, cannot be developed and is not considered part of the developable area. So that means that the overall level of development on the site would be 37% across the full site, and this raises to 40% for these central plots, for these individual central plots. It is considered that, especially in the context of the relatively low level of development in the general surrounding area, that the proposal would comprise an overdevelopment of the site. This is further emphasised by the need to push the building line so much further forward and to both the north and the south as currently in the surrounding area, and it does not take cue from the surrounding site context. In relation to its design, it does. I don't know what it's doing, it's a bit weird. There we go. The proposed elevations here for the west and the east, and the following is for the south and the north. Show a contemporary design for the properties with a mix of materials including granite, render and timber linings, and a mono-pitched roof clad in dark grey metal profile sheeting. All dwellings would have a footprint of just under 80 square metres and would have a principal elevation facing south onto the driveway and garden area, which you can see on the floor plans, so that'll be here. Even though a modern design could be acceptable in this location, it is considered that the design does not take sufficient consideration of the site context and includes further indications that the proposal will not fit comfortably on the site and that there will be insufficient space and spacing between the buildings. These include that the south-facing main windows of the living accommodation would look straight out onto the rear elevation of the neighbouring property at a distance of only 6 metres. The need to introduce frosted windows in certain locations, and the need to introduce the overhang, which is here, to ensure that there's enough daylight going into the main living accommodation, which is probably best demonstrated on this slide here. It is further considered that this proposed design would not achieve an acceptable level of residential amenity for future occupiers through a number of factors. So going back to the site plan. These include a restricted outlook from the main ground floor living area, with the main windows looking out onto this north elevation of the next building, a relatively small and restricted garden area where the main part of it for especially plots 2, 3 and 4 are likely to be significantly overshadowed by the next building, and a lack of privacy for the room which kind of sits here, which fronts directly onto the pavement onto South Avenue, and there will be no separation distance between the pavement and this elevation, this window. For these reasons, it's considered that the proposal would not provide an acceptable living environment for future residents. In relation to the residential amenities neighbouring properties, the dwelling most affected by the proposed development will be 21 South Avenue, immediately to the west. As can be seen here, both plots 1 and 4 would sit significantly to the front and rear of this house, and due to their proximity to the boundary and their overall height, these proposed dwellings would have an overbearing impact on the outlook of this existing house. In addition, all dwellings would have large windows on the south elevation at first floor level, and for plot 4, these would look back towards some of the private areas of 21 South Avenue, resulting in a loss of privacy for that property. For these reasons, it is considered that the proposal would have an unacceptable impact on the residential amenity of this existing dwelling. It is for these reasons, as discussed and detailed in the committee report on page 155 and 156 of the agenda, that the proposal is recommended for refusal. I will now quickly go through the remainder of the slides. So here there's a street elevation. Here's a street elevation showing the heights of the proposed and the existing development. Again, it should be noted that this building will be a lot more prominent when driving along North Deeside Road, just because it will be so much nearer to the road itself. And then the following slide shows the one-way system that I briefly mentioned earlier. It shows a drawing showing that cars would need to enter South Avenue here from Devonick Road, driving along here and out here. This section will be two-way, with this section from the southeast corner of basically the development site up to North Deeside Road will be one-way, northbound only, so no access from North Deeside Road in here. This is mainly due because the driveway serving this northernmost property is too near to the junction of North Deeside Road. Even though this would overcome this issue with the driveway, it would mean that the properties here in this corner that are there already, so 21, 17, 17A, the Kennel Business and number 15, can't use this section anymore to get to their house, so they would need to use this longer route. And in addition, it would also result in an increase of traffic, especially along this section of South Avenue, which is currently in a very poor state of repair and is basically just used by the residents for this house, number 9 and number 11, and a weekly bin lorry. The front door of this property at number 9 opens out directly onto the carriageway, so that could be an implication on safety for the residents of this property. And then finally, here are a number of visuals. So this is from North Deeside Road. This is from North Deeside Road coming from the west. This is from Cods Court from the southeast of the site. And here's looking north from the southeast corner of the site towards North Deeside Road. So are there any questions?
Any questions for Jenica? No. Okay, the recommendation is one of refusal, which I'll be moving. Is anybody otherwise minded? No. Okay, Ms. McBain, can you just go to the vote, please?
No problem. Thank you, convener. So just once again, if we can do a roll call for the recording. So this is to refuse the application. Can you just indicate if you're happy to refuse? So Councillor Bolton?
Refuse.
Councillor Stewart?
Refuse.
Councillor Allen?
Refuse.
Councillor Cook?
Refuse.
Councillor Allard?
Refuse.
Councillor Hutchison?
Refuse.
Councillor Gregg?
Refuse.
Councillor Mackenzie?
Refuse.
Councillor Malik?
Refuse.
Thank you. The application is unanimously refused.
Okay, thank you very much. We're now moving on to 7.2, which is the detailed planning permission for the formation of an aggregate recycling facility, installation of wash pod and generator with associated work at Tarbagger Quarry, Clinty. This is planning reference 200-498, and it's Mr. Clark.
Thanks, convener. Can you see the PowerPoint up just in front of you?
Yes, thank you. You can.
Okay, thanks. I'll just go through my presentation first, then I'll go through the PowerPoint. The application relates to the formation of an aggregate recycling facility and associated works within a site extending to approximately 1.2 hectares and known as Tarbagger Quarry. Whilst there's some evidence of this form of quarry use, the site is now covered in areas of vegetation and planting, which I'll show you in my presentation. Access to the site is taken via a single access track road with passing places from the B979 to the north, with the A96 lying approximately 1 kilometre north of the site. The surrounding area includes residential properties, Tarbagger Wood, a crane operator's training facility and a vehicle breaker's yard. The application has been referred to PDMC as the proposal has been subject to more than 6 letters of representation, and an objection has been received from Dyson Stonywood Community Council. Consultee comments are provided on page 13 of the additional circulation, and it is noted there is no objection to the proposal subject to the insertion of a number of conditions. These include a requirement for a further planning application for the formation of passing places out with the application site boundary to upgrade the access road. A further consultation response was carried out with the Archaeology Service, which isn't included in my report, who confirmed that they had no objection to the proposal. 28 letters of representation have been received, which include 21 objections, 6 in support and 1 neutral representation. These are summarised on pages 13 to 15 and are addressed on pages 20 to 22. An evaluation of the proposed development is provided on pages 17 to 22, which address various factors including the principal development, design and amenity, noise and air quality, roads and natural heritage. The report concluded that the proposed development is not considered to be essential for the purposes of agricultural, woodland and forestry, recreational uses compatible with an agricultural natural setting, mineral extraction, quarry restoration or landscape renewal, nor does it satisfy the exemption criteria set out within policy NE2. The proposal is therefore contrary to policy NE2 Greenbelt of the Aberdeen Local Development Plan and policy NE1 Greenbelt of the proposed Aberdeen Local Development Plan. The application is therefore recommended for refusal. I'll just quickly go through my presentation. So to start with, we have the location plan, which shows that it's on the southwest corner of the site. If you just see the red line boundary there. We then have the proposed site plan, which shows areas of planting proposed around the site with the equipment located here and a vehicle turning area just here as well. The applicants also propose various levels of planting around the area where the machinery would be sited. And again, we just have cross section of the site which show the 6 metre bund which would be proposed, and there'd be 4 metre high fencing proposed on top of that. Again, next one, this is just a Google Maps image which shows the access to the site. So this is the B979 and this is the access road just running up here, which eventually gets to the site. Now not wanting to move on. Again, the first image here, this just shows what the site looks like at the moment. It was obviously detailed as a quarry previously, but it's now overgrown with various planting. Sorry about this, it's not going to play ball. So this one that shows that's up now should show the just sort of general area around about the site. And then the last photographs just show, again, part of the site, the existing access road on photos 2 and 3. And then the last photo shows the crane operator training centre, which is located just next to the application site boundary. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clark. Questions for Gavin? I'm not seeing any questions. You've done such a good job, Gavin. With that in mind, the recommendation is one of refusal, which I will be moving. Is anybody otherwise minded? Nope. Okay, Ms. McBain, could I get you to go to the vote, please?
Certainly. Thank you, convener. So once again, if you can just state for the recording if you're happy to refuse the application. Councillor Bolton?
Refuse.
Councillor Stewart?
Refuse.
Councillor Allen?
Refuse.
Councillor Cook?
Refuse.
Councillor Allard?
Refuse.
Councillor Hutchison?
Refuse.
Councillor Gregg?
Refuse.
Councillor Mackenzie?
Refuse.
And Councillor Malik?
Refuse.
Thank you. So the application is refused unanimously.
Okay, thanks very much, everybody. Well, that concludes the business of the Planning Committee today. The next date of the meeting is the 24th of September at 10 AM. However, I would just remind everybody, we have a pre-application forum this afternoon at 2 o'clock, which is for the land to the south of west of Deeside Braes, Aberdeen, some known as Leggart, some known as Royal Banku Devnick, lots of different names. But that starts at 2 o'clock and the applicants will be there to give us a bit of show and tell, which I think we all find very useful. So thank you all for today and I look forward to seeing you this afternoon at 2 o'clock. Thanks everybody. Avril, I will stay on the call to speak to you. You can stop the recording, please.
I'll just stop the recording now, thank you.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you, see you later.